Hello everyone and welcome to a car name that is reputable, trustworthy, and most likely you would have owned or dreamt of owning it, or you will be owning it in future, which is this new Honda Civic Hatchback. So in today's video we're going to be finding out everything in detail about this Civic Hatchback. So just like the previous generation, the new generation of the Honda Civic comes in two different body types, sedan and the hatchback, and the one that I'm reviewing is the hatchback. And this hatchback comes in two different variants, sport and sport touring. Sport touring being the top of the line, whereas the one that I'm reviewing is the Honda Civic Hatchback Sport variant. So let me begin from the front, and also in terms of the differences I'll also be mentioning what's the difference between the top trim and the sport variant. So as and when we come across, I'm going to show you that too. So let me begin from the front. You get this plastic grille out here in normal plastic honeycomb design, and this Honda badging in chrome. At the bottom, normal plastic again, extends from one end to the other, this plastic trim and body painted at the bottom, and then you would find these slots in here which are covered with normal plastic. These are supposed to be fog lights which comes in the sport touring, but on this one it's just been covered with plastic on either side. And then you come to these headlights. These are the full set of LED headlights on this Civic Hatchback. There are also DRLs on top and also the turn signals below that. And in terms of the appearance, the Civic now is much more subtle, curvy, and less sort of edgy and sharp compared to the previous generation. So this one is much more aligned like the newer generations of the Honda model, which is the Accord, CR-V, HR-V, and now the Civic. There is also a camera that has been mounted. It's used for all the safety systems. So there is also an adaptive cruise control on this one, even though this is like a base variant, but there is still the adaptive cruise control, and all the safety systems, warnings and everything are controlled using that camera. Now on the sides there are 18-inch glossy black alloy rims with this Honda badging in the center, and these 18-inch rims look really very sporty on this car. And the side profile now is much more cleaner in terms of its appearance, instead of again more sharp edges and lines. So there is one shoulder line that continues from the front and goes till the back. Otherwise at the bottom it's much more plainer. There is just normal plastic skirting given at the bottom. When you come to these side mirrors, these are non-power foldable side mirrors. They are power adjustable. They have blind spot warning inside them, and on the higher trim the side mirrors are also power foldable. The front doors are smart keyless entry doors. There is also a walk away feature, so you can just walk away from the car and it will automatically lock the car for you. And look how low it is in the back, and also much more curvy, and because this is a hatchback, so there is no extension in the back too. And then you have the same 18-inch glossy black rims in the back too. And then look at the overhang in the back, very short. And in terms of the driving and the handling, this thing is absolutely amazing. Now in the rear there is rear combination tail light cluster, so the turning lights, the reversing lights, all of that are halogen, whereas the main braking light, that's in LED in this C shaped. And you will also see this plastic piece, red color, which is not illuminated but it's just meant to make the whole back end look much more flowy, like these lights are connected, something that sort of sense. And very small sort of extension in the back because this is a hatchback. And then the Honda badging in chrome, the Civic badging in chrome, and also the sport badging in chrome too. There is also a wiper in the rear glass, and in terms of the visibility it's actually slightly restricted, and the lower level visibility is slightly compromised, I will admit that, even though this glass is long, but it's much more sloping. So in terms of the visibility, yeah, I mean not too bad I would say, because the lanes you can easily see like one and a couple of lanes around, so that's not going to be an issue in terms of that sort of visibility. And a very roundish bumper, again, yeah, much more different than the previous generation. Some reflectors and this plastic diffuser, which is just like an added bit, but it's not actually a diffuser, it's just like for the design purposes. Then there are these actual exhaust tips, dual exhaust tips in chrome, so those are the functional ones and not like the closed tips and just for the purpose of giving you some exhaust tips. So these are the real exhaust tips given in the back. Now when you come to the boot space, because this is a hatchback, that's where you get an advantage, because there is a lot of boot space. So when the rear seats are folded up, you can put 693 liters of luggage in the back, compared to the sedan version in which you can put 419 liters. So that's like so much of extra luggage space which you get on this hatchback version. But one of the best features that I found is this: the boot separator conveniently folds away and sits on the side, so you don't have to put it anywhere. And there's additional piece on this rear door. There are also rubber carpets given, so that it's just more easier to clean and wash them and use them on a daily purposes with the Civic badging on it. There are also tying points given all around. There are also more hooks given. Then there's also a boot light, and underneath the boot floor sits a temporary spare wheel with all your tool kits, and there are also scuff plates given so that you don't damage your bumper. And it's also quite deep enough that way, so let me show you. Like if I go inside, yeah, that's quite deep that way, so you can easily put one big bag and one medium sized bag into this one, and load even smaller bags on top too. And now in order to fold down the rear seats, it's very easy. Just pull the lever from here, and then once you fold down the rear seats, again there is massive space that you get, and you can easily put longer objects. There's a bit of a step there, but that's also been covered with the carpet, and also the boot floor itself has a slope, so it's just easier to slide your luggage in and out. And because this is so much deeper, there is like just so much more space availability on the inside. And when you want to close the door, it's manually operated, so you just give it a slam and close the trunk door. Well, this new generation of the Civic hatchback also gets a new interior layout, again aligned with the latest product lineup from Honda, like the Accord, CR-V, HR-V, all of them. So the interior look and feel is very similar if you jump into any sort of cars, and I actually like this interior layout. It looks much more premium, if I'm honest. So let me begin with the material quality. You get soft touch material on the dashboard, even on the top bit out here about the driver's display, but the door cards on top have normal plastic, even on the sides normal plastic where you're going to be resting hands. That's fabric covered with the white color stitching. The switches and plastic around them is just normal, and even at the bottom normal plastic. Out here normal plastic. This bit in the center console meant to look maybe like carbon fiber, and that's again in plastic, and glossy plastic in the middle bit with this honeycomb mesh structure. I really like this design of the air conditioning vents. So behind the honeycomb mesh are the air conditioning vents with these joysticks, so you can change the direction of air, and even on the driver's side too, on the left side. So I like this whole seamless flow where there is no break in terms of giving you specifically air conditioning controls, but they are all hidden cleverly behind the honeycomb mesh, and which is why the feel of this interior will give you much more premium in that sense. Yes, there is bits and places where there is just a little bit of normal plastic provided, but yeah, where you're going to be interacting with the car, that's all soft touch material. This leather covered steering wheel, handrest which is fabric covered. These seats are fabric and leather mixture of that. So yeah, overall material quality is a mixed bag. Now when it comes to the driver's display, there is a 7-inch TFT screen on this sport model, whereas on the sport touring model there is a 10.2-inch digital driver's display. So this one is a mixture of analog dial and the screen. So on the right side there is speedometer, which is a fixed analog dial, whereas on the left side there is the 7-inch TFT screen, and it's pretty crisp that way, and it's pretty bright, although you can still feel that it's a TFT screen. So the operation is straightforward, and you can change the information on the left dial using the scroller dial given on the left side of the steering wheel along with the home button. So the first option is the range, average fuel, which is what you can set whichever option you want to on your screen. If you press the home button, speed and time, again A and B, average speed, driver attention, seat belts, maintenance, where you can see your oil life, safety support, detailed settings in which you can change pretty much everything inside the car. So maybe you want to change the driver assistance system setup, meter setup, keyless access, lighting setup, door setup, maintenance, reset, default, or you can go back. Then the customized display, where you want to see what options you want to see on your driver's display on this dial, that you can change to. Then if you want to leave it in no content or warnings, and then you come back to the range and fuel, and that is about it. In the middle bit, yes, there is more information like the drive modes and everything. So there are 3 different driving modes on this Civic Sport. So the 3 different driving modes are eco, so there is this beep, normal, and the sport. So 3 different driving modes are shown on your screen too, in the center also, and also the cruise control information with the digital speed on top. So yeah, that's about your driver's display. Straightforward. Even buttons are given on the steering wheel, so it just makes it very easier to communicate with the car while you're on the move. Now when you come to the steering wheel, this is a leather covered, a round steering wheel with glossy black plastic at the bottom with white color stitching on the edges, and the steering wheel actually feels quite premium when you touch it. There are also paddle shifters given in the back, but this is a CVT transmission, so most likely you're not going to be using the paddle shifters. If you do, but there are given, and they are fairly long, I would say, and there are buttons given on either side, Honda badging in the middle, and the steering wheel also is a heated steering wheel button given at the bottom of that. Straightforward, so you don't have to look up anywhere where the button is. It's always there on your steering wheel. This steering wheel is manually adjustable, tilt and telescopic, and there are buttons given, as I said, on either side. So on the right side, buttons given for the adaptive cruise control, distance and everything, and on the left side there are buttons given for the media control and also the controls for the driver's display. Now when you come to the air conditioning controls, straightforward button operated air conditioning system provided on this Civic hatchback. So let me begin with the operation. Straightforward on and off button. In the middle, this fan dial, and these dials are something which, I mean, even like from a luxury car you would not find these sort of dials, and they have just such a nice fit and finish to it. And the sound, listen to that. Yeah, and you get dual zone air conditioning system on this Sport variant, and the temperature dials are given on either side, and the fresh air buttons and all the different modes of air, all of those buttons are given right there, and it's all there in front of you, which is just so much more easier to operate this air conditioning controls. There are also buttons given for the heated seats. So on this Sport variant, the driver and the passenger side seat are the heated seats, whereas on the Sport Touring, even the rear seats on either side are the heated seats. Now when you come to the infotainment screen, there is a 7-inch infotainment system given on this Sport variant, whereas on the Sport Touring there is 9-inch infotainment screen, and some more changes like wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, whereas on this there is wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay connectivity. And in terms of the operation, this is just very simple. So first of all, there are dials given on either side for volume and the selector, and at the bottom you would find the buttons. So those are about it. So you press the phone button, connected to the phone if there are any calls or contacts, keypad, all of that. Then the radio button, again straightforward, media option, connect option, and the menu option. You can change your sound settings. So you get 8-speaker sound system on this Civic Hatchback Sport, whereas on the Sport Touring there are 12-speaker Bose music system. Worth checking that one out. And there is Bluetooth setting, clock settings, RDS, license, factory reset, all of that. We come back into the menu, whichever menu options you were last into, which is the Bluetooth. So yeah, that's about it. That's your infotainment screen. It can be slightly grainy is what I found, the graphics on it, but yes, nonetheless there is Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, so your maps is also sorted out. And again, I like how basic it is, because on the move it's just very easier to operate, whereas on the Sport Touring there is a proper infotainment system where there is a lot more detailed options in terms of what you can do in terms of interacting with this infotainment system. Now when you come to the charging, so there is one USB port given in the front underneath the air conditioning control, along with one 12-volt power socket, whereas for the rear passengers there are 2 normal USB ports given, whereas on the Sport Touring there are 4 USB ports, and there's also a wireless charger which is included, but it's not included on this Civic Hatchback Sport. Now when it comes to this gear shifter, it's conveniently placed, but I just found that to be a little on the higher side. Like when you try to operate it, it would have been a slightly on the lower side. It would have made things easier, but on the plus side, I can just rest my hands on this handrest and operate these air conditioning controls very easily. And the stick for changing the gear is pretty straightforward. Buttons given in the back for your drive mode, and also the auto engine start stop feature, the parking brakes, brake hold, all those buttons given in the back. Now on this Civic Sport, there are these extendable sun visors, which is pretty amazing because these doors are quite long, and most of the times sedans, hatchbacks, they don't have this feature, but this one does. Now when it comes to the storage, in the front door cards you can easily put 1.5 liter water bottle and slight amount of storage in the back. There is this storage underneath the air conditioning controls to put your phones and wallets. Then there are these two flexible cup holders, quite deep enough. The glove box decently big, and this handrest again has this tray which you can shift in the front and back, and then options maybe to put your cards in this or the keys, and it's deep enough to again put your phones or wallets, or maybe 2.5 liter water bottle horizontally. And this is also fabric covered, as I mentioned. And in the rear door cards you can put 1 liter worth of bottle and not much more storage around. And there is also a center armrest in which there are two normal cup holders. Now on this Civic Sport hatchback there is a sunroof, and as you can see, things are warming up in Canada now, especially in Toronto. So currently it's 22 degrees and the sun is bright, and yes, as you saw, it makes the cabin feel very airy on the inside. There is also a sunglass holder provided on this thing. When you come to the seats, these are the mixture of fabric and leather seats on this Civic Hatchback Sport, whereas on the Sport Touring variant you get completely leather seats. But I love the fact that these are fabric seats, especially the middle bit is fabric, because on a warm day like this these seats don't get hot at all. And especially, I don't know, I just find the fabric seats to be much more comfortable than the leather seats. I don't know, let me know in the comment section below, which seats do you prefer, the leather seats or the fabric seats? There's also a bit of stripe going on in the bottom and also in the backrest too. These headrests are pretty squidgy that ways, and the seats are fairly broad and offer decent amount of support underneath my thigh too. So for longer journeys, as I said, these fabric seats are going to be very comfortable. In terms of the side support, there is quite a lot. Even at the bottom there is decent support. And in terms of the adjustability, so the driver and the passenger side seats are both manually adjustable, whereas on the Sport Touring the driver and the passenger side seats are electronically adjustable. There are also more buttons given on the left side for the traction control and also for the safety system. So you can press that button, and maybe if you want to switch off the road departure mitigation, which is the lane keep assist or the blind spot warning or collision mitigation, all of those systems you can switch it on and off by pressing that button and using this scroller dial. Now even though this is a hatchback, but in terms of the space in the rear there is no cutbacks, because look at the amount of space I have for my knees, almost worth a palm, and these seats are in my driving position, and after that I get this much of space. And even the head space is decent, although someone above 6 feet may start brushing their heads against the ceiling, but there is a cutout provided so as to increase the headroom also. And in terms of the comfort in these seats, you have the same fabric and leather materials, and the fabric bit is in the middle, so it makes the seats quite soft and comfortable. But the seats are on the lower side, and which is why there is a bit of support, under thigh support lacking, but I'm still not complaining because the comfort in these seats is actually making up for all of those things. And I can even slide my legs under the seat. There's some amount of room, so during longer journeys I can stretch my legs, and then my thighs are resting on the seats. Now there's also a bit of a step or the tunnel. So if you're in the middle as a passenger, the seats first of all are super soft, so you can easily sit into the middle seats, although I don't know what happens to the passengers on either side, but yes, 3 adults can easily fit into the seats. And even the backrest, for once it's soft and not like bulging like some of the other cars. And when you're not having middle passengers, you can fold down the handrest, although this is slightly on the lower side. And look at the softness of this handrest. So yeah, there are like two normal cup holders. As I mentioned, you can fold these seats also, and these seats are foldable in a ratio of 60:40. Now there are two USB ports provided in the back, but there are no air conditioning vents given for the rear passengers, but instead just this plain plastic. And even there is normal plastic on the door cards on the sides where are going to be resting hands, that's fabric covered, and you can put 1 liter worth of bottle in the door cards, whereas on the passenger side there is pocket storage, but not on the driver side. And the seats also have slight amount of curve, which is why it's able to give you that extra bit of knee room. But overall, in terms of the space arrangement, I really like this rear space because there is lots of space. You don't feel very claustrophobic in here, unlike some of the hatchbacks where the rear seats are right next to the driver and the passenger. But no, on this it's nearly like a sedan version, so you can easily relax in this Civic hatchback during the longer journeys. Well, I'm going to begin the driving test by first mentioning about the steering and then the suspension, because these two are just so brilliantly done on this new Civic hatchback. So when you come to the steering, there's an electronic steering, but the thing is the way it's been calibrated, so at lower speeds it's light, and at higher speeds it becomes progressively harder, and for a good reason, because you want the steering wheel to not be so light on highways. And it's not just that, the response and the feedback from that is just so spot on, and it's very pointy and very following your commands and the directions, and you know exactly what is going on. And even the turning radius is just so small on this new Civic hatchback, and it's the exact same setup irrespective of the sport or the sport touring package. Now the road I have come on today has a lot of bumps, and I wanted to show you all the suspension on this. So starting off with the suspensions, yes, again very well done on this thing, and clubbed with these seats for some reason it's just so much more comfortable, and the bumps that are absorbed are really well, and the car always remains calm and stable and well balanced. Like, you're not going to be thrown around, and as you can see from the video itself, I'm not being thrown around from here and there. In fact, even with these 18-inch rims, I thought like the suspensions and the overall comfort would take a hit, but no, these are still very within the limits and very comfortable for sure during the longer journeys. And when it comes to the engine, so you get a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder DOHC VTEC turbocharged engine that produces 180 horsepower and 177 pound-foot of torque, and this engine is mated to a CVT transmission which powers the front wheel. So there's front wheel drive, and sport or sport touring both have the front wheel drive, but there is a manual option on the sport touring, whereas this only comes with the CVT. So in terms of the engine response, again, fabulous. It's just, I know I keep mentioning that everything is just so good, but you really have to drive this car to understand that the package given on this thing works so well in sync, and the engine response is spot on. Like, there is turbocharger, yes, but it still does not feel like you're driving one. And if you want the power, yes, there is immediately something there. Even when you put it in the sport mode, yes, it improves the response slightly, but otherwise, yeah, even on the normal mode, it's just about ample for day-to-day driving. And the gearbox, well, that's a CVT, so that's done to maximize the efficiency from the system. So when you come to the efficiency, again, this is where it comes into play. So if you want to daily drive it on longer journeys, then this thing will deliver. I am able to get around 5.1 to 5.5 liters per 100 kilometers, whereas within the city you will get from 7.5 to 7.1, between that much in terms of the efficiency, sometimes 7.9 based on the traffic, but again, that's not too bad. So this thing comes with 48 liters of tank, so estimated to give you 600 kilometers of range, but you can easily get 700 if you are careful. And if you put it in the eco mode, then yeah, you can easily achieve that much of range from this tiny little car. Not so tiny actually, because it's pretty. So from outside this car looks small, but from inside it's very well arranged to make it feel like you're driving a bigger car in that sense. And in terms of the overall maneuverability of the car also, it's just so nippy. It's a fun little car for sure. When you turn it around, like, you can feel the base is so small, so you just go around the corner so easily and so quickly, and it's just the fun of driving these small cars, and this one definitely offers that too. Now when it comes to the brakes, there are 4-disc brakes on this Civic hatchback, and in terms of the performance, it's rather good in terms of the overall performance. And the brake pedal, yes, that's slightly on the softer side. Sometimes I find, like, initially the brake pedal has a bit of a dead sort of travel, and then eventually the brakes start to function, but not that much. If you are like very sensitive like me, then you would notice that, but otherwise on a day-to-day it's very progressive. Now when it comes to the noise and the vibration, so the front glass is an acoustic glass, so it nearly removes all the noise, but there is slight amount of tire noise, which is what I noticed, but there's no wind whooshing or as such. And even the engine never gets stressed out that much, and I don't hear it particularly inside. Maybe it's just well insulated. And in terms of the build quality, so far it looks pretty good. There's nothing rattling or anything or loose on the inside. I'm currently waiting on in a signal, so we are just going now green. So yeah, as we keep moving, once you come to the safety systems, this car is loaded with safety systems. Honda hasn't taken a step back in terms of giving you a very secure car. So there are 8 airbags, 2 for the front driver and the passenger, 2 side airbags for the driver and the passenger. There are 4 curtain airbags, 2 in the front and 2 in the back in the rear seats. There are child isofix points in both the rear seats. Now that was a very, very loud Mercedes. Then there is a single camera reversing system, but the output from that can be improved. I don't know if it's just the screen which is making it, in terms of the appearance, pretty grainy and pretty dark, or it's just even the camera that needs an improvement. But yes, it can be improved. There's a single camera provided. And in terms of the other safety systems, there's lane departure warning, there is the adaptive cruise control, then there is the ABS, brake assist, emergency braking assist, then the front and the rear collision warnings. All of those are provided on this thing, which is why in terms of the safety you wouldn't feel that there is any cutback, and in fact there isn't at all. So yeah, the safety systems and all are right up there. Now when it comes to the pricing, so that's where it gets slightly interesting. So the sport variant of this hatchback comes in at 36,000 Canadian dollars, and the sport touring variant comes in at 39,500 Canadian dollars. I'm going to put the exact pricing on the screens, but again, that's without any taxes yet, so there will be some taxes and the eventual price will be changing, but this is a ballpark figure. So yes, in terms of the pricing, it's slightly on the pricey side compared to the other cars in the market, but let's not forget, Honda Civic has been the best selling car for nearly 24 years, best selling car in Canada. So there's no doubt that this car still continues that reputation of being the best. It's handsome, it's spacious, it's comfortable, it's loaded with the tech, although yeah, some things can be improved, and also the material quality can be slightly improved. But in terms of the safety systems, it's right up there. In fact, it over delivers sometimes on the safety aspect of it, and overall driving is just fantastic. You should just definitely try this car out just for the handling and the feel of it and the comfort. And even the everyday driving is going to be easier because it's cheaper to drive this thing. So you can easily get like 700 kilometers, or maybe let's say 600 kilometers from a 48-liter tank. So yeah, every day it's quite doable in this thing. And plus with the comfortable seats, the traffic journeys are going to be bearable, and for that this car definitely deserves to be in the top 3 list now. So if you're considering a hatchback, and plus let's not forget the hatchback offers you more boot space, so if you're traveling or you travel often with a lot of luggage, then this car will offer you that too. So yeah, definitely check this car out because it's still a very worthy contender. Anyways, that's pretty much it for this video. Give this video a thumbs up and thank you for watching this video. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, then you can click here, and if you want to watch more videos, then click here. I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye, take care and drive safe.